The fluorescent tube above you flickers every 9 seconds. You've been counting. You're sitting in a plastic chair at County General, the one with the crack running down the backrest and something dried on the armrest that you've decided not to think about. Your paper ticket says 847. The digital board above the triage window says, now serving 811. It's been saying 811 for 40 minutes. The clock behind the plexiglass reads 10 p.m., and you've been here since 2 in the afternoon because your chest started doing something it's never done before, and Keisha drove you here in her Nissan with the check engine light on because you don't have a car and you definitely don't have insurance, and calling an ambulance would have cost you $1,100. The waiting room smells like floor cleaner and the vending machine coffee someone spilled 3 hours ago. A kid coughs across the aisle. His mother fills out the same clipboard you filled out, the one that asks for your insurance provider, and you wrote none in block letters, and the intake woman didn't look up, just slid a financial assistance pamphlet across the counter with 2 fingers, like she's done it 900 times today, because she has. When they finally call your number, a resident named Dr. Okafor walks in. Young, tired, kind eyes sitting above dark circles that look like they were painted on. He listens to your chest for maybe 90 seconds, asks you 4 questions, types something into a screen that faces away from you, and says it's likely stress-related, but they'll run an EKG to be safe. He doesn't tell you what the EKG costs. You don't ask. You already know that whatever number appears on the bill will be a number you cannot pay. The whole visit takes 11 hours. The actual time a doctor spends with you? 4 minutes. 3 weeks later, a woman named Brenda calls you from the billing department. Her voice is flat and practiced and completely indifferent to the fact that she's about to read you a number that will sit in your stomach for the next 18 months. $4,200. She says it the way someone reads a license plate. You set up a payment plan for $67 a month, and you will miss the 3rd payment, and the 5th, and the 9th. And each time, they will add a late fee, and the total will grow like something alive, and you will stop opening the envelopes entirely because the sight of them makes your hands shake. This is the hospital you can afford when you have nothing. The chair is hard, the coffee is cold, and no one knows your name. You have a job now. Benefits. A card in your wallet that says Blue Cross on the front and has a group number you've never memorized. You feel like you've made it, until the first time you actually try to use it. Your deductible is $6,100, which means the first $6,100 of anything that happens to your body this year comes out of your pocket. And your pocket has about $412 in it on a good week. So you don't go to the hospital. You go to the urgent care on Decatur Boulevard, the one wedged between a nail salon and a Cricket Wireless, because the copay is $40 and they can see you in 90 minutes, and that's better than 11 hours under fluorescent lights at County. The doctor at the urgent care is a woman whose name you never catch because she introduces herself while already looking at her screen. She prescribes you a generic for $32 and tells you to follow up with your primary care physician, and you nod like you have one. Keisha comes with you sometimes, not because she needs to, but because she's Keisha, and Keisha has always been the person who shows up. She sits in the waiting room and reads a magazine from 2019 and doesn't ask what's wrong, and doesn't ask how you'll pay. When the receptionist tells you your card declined for the $40 copay, Keisha pulls out her own without hesitation and splits it, and never mentions it again. You start doing something you never did before. Rationing. Not food. Care. You skip the dentist because the cleaning alone is $210 after insurance. You push back the eye exam because glasses are out of pocket. You Google your symptoms at 1 a.m. and convince yourself it's nothing, because nothing is the only diagnosis you can afford. The urgent care is fine. The lights are less aggressive. The chair is cushioned. But the doctor spends exactly 7 minutes with you, and when you leave, you realize you forgot to ask the one question you actually came in for. Something shifts. You have a PPO now, not an HMO. You chose it during open enrollment because a coworker named Dana told you the PPO lets you see specialists without a referral. And that one sentence changed your entire relationship with your own body. You have a primary care physician. Her name is Dr. Nasseri. She has a small practice on the second floor of a medical building that smells like new carpet and has a water dispenser in the lobby with cucumber slices floating in it. Dr. Nasseri spends 15 minutes with you. 15 real minutes, not 7 minutes with 3 of them spent typing. She asks about your sleep. She asks about your stress. She notices you're clenching your jaw and asks if you grind your teeth at night. And you realize no doctor has ever looked at you closely enough to notice that. You get a referral to a specialist. The wait is 19 days, not 3 months. The specialist has her own office with a framed degree from Johns Hopkins and a noise machine in the hallway that plays something between rain and static. She orders blood work. The blood work comes back with a flag, nothing urgent, but something worth watching. She explains what it means. She uses full sentences. She doesn't rush. You walk out of the specialist's office and sit in your car for a moment and feel something unfamiliar. Taken care of. This is the tier where you stop Googling your symptoms at 1 a.m. Not because you're less anxious, but because you finally have someone to call. But there's a shadow here too, because at $75,000, you can see the door to better care, and you can almost reach the handle, but you can't quite turn it. You can afford to be a patient. You just can't afford to be a priority. You don't think about insurance anymore, not because it's free, but because it works. Your plan covers therapy, real therapy, not the 6-session EAP limit your old job offered. You see a therapist named Morgan every other Tuesday in an office with a fiddle leaf fig and a sound machine that actually drowns out the hallway. Morgan doesn't watch the clock. You know this because one session ran 53 minutes and she didn't flinch. You have an HSA now with $14,000 in it that you haven't touched because someone on a podcast told you to let it grow. And so it sits there like a safety net you hope you never need, but knowing it exists changes the way you breathe when something goes wrong. The hospital you go to now is part of a network, clean, suburban, with a parking garage that has designated spaces for patients. The rooms are private. The walls are thick enough that you can't hear the patient next door. The nurse brings you a warm blanket without you asking, and it's such a small thing, but it's the first time you've ever been in a hospital where someone anticipated what you needed before you said it. You get an elective procedure, something you've been putting off for 2 years because you couldn't justify the cost. The out-of-pocket after insurance is $1,100. You pay it from the HSA and feel nothing. Not because $1,100 is nothing, but because for the first time in your life, a medical bill doesn't rearrange your month. Dr. Nasseri refers you to a colleague for a second opinion on that flag from last year. The colleague agrees it's worth monitoring. 2 doctors, 2 opinions, both thorough, both unhurried. You didn't know healthcare could feel like this, like a conversation instead of a transaction. You join a concierge medical practice. The fee is $4,800 a year. Your friends think that's insane. You think it's the best money you've ever spent. Your doctor's name is Dr. Whitfield. He is 61 years old, silver-haired, and carries himself like a man who has never been in a rush in his life. His practice has 92 patients. Not 900, 92. When you call his office, a woman named Elaine answers by the second ring, and she knows who you are before you say your last name. Your first appointment with Dr. Whitfield is 45 minutes. He doesn't type while you talk. He writes on a legal pad with a fountain pen and asks follow-up questions that make you realize no one has ever taken a complete medical history from you before. He asks about your mother's cholesterol, your father's blood pressure, whether your grandmother had thyroid issues. You don't know the answer to the last one, and he says that's okay, we'll test for it. He orders a full executive panel, 53 individual markers. Your previous doctor ordered 12. The panel catches something, not something dramatic, something quiet, something that would have gone unnoticed for another 4 or 5 years in a 7-minute appointment. And by then, the options would have been fewer, and the conversations would have been harder. Dr. Whitfield calls you personally with the results. Not his nurse, not a portal message, him, on his cell phone, on a Saturday. You remember Brenda's phone call, the billing woman from County General years ago, her voice flat, reading you a number that made your hands shake? Dr. Whitfield's call is the opposite of that. Same phone, same ear, completely different life. You tell Keisha about the concierge practice. She laughs and says, "They give you coffee when you walk in?" You say yes. She says, "Fancy." 2 months later, you add Keisha to the practice. You pay her annual fee without telling her how much it costs. She finds out anyway. She doesn't say thank you. She says, "You didn't have to do that." And you say, "I know." And that's enough. You fly to Rochester, Minnesota, and walk into the Mayo Clinic for a 2-day executive health screening that costs $9,400 and is not covered by any insurance you've ever had, and you pay it like a dinner check. The waiting room doesn't look like a waiting room. It looks like a hotel lobby in a Scandinavian city you've never been to. Blonde wood, ambient lighting, a silence so clean it feels engineered. A woman named Patricia meets you at the entrance. Not at the desk, at the door. She has your name, your file, your preferred room temperature, your dietary restrictions, and your schedule for the next 48 hours printed on a cardstock itinerary with your name embossed at the top. Over 2 days, you are seen by 9 specialists: a cardiologist, an endocrinologist, a dermatologist who checks every mole with a scope that connects to a screen the size of a small television, a nutritionist who builds you a 12-week meal plan based on your blood work, a sleep specialist who asks how many hours you get, and when you say 6, she looks at you the way Dr. Okafor once looked at your EKG, with quiet, professional concern. Nobody rushes, nobody double books, nobody calls you by the wrong name. Every result is compiled into a single bound report, 47 pages, that is hand-delivered to you in a leather portfolio before you leave. When you need a procedure 6 months later, you don't go to the suburban hospital with the parking garage. You go to a private surgical center where the pre-op room has a Bose speaker playing low piano music, and the anesthesiologist introduces himself and sits down, actually sits, in a chair, at your eye level, and explains every step of what's about to happen. You recover in a suite, not a room, a suite. The nurse assigned to you is assigned only to you. The sheets are not the thin, starched hospital sheets from County General. They are soft. The food is not a tray slid through a slot. It is a menu. You order salmon. You lie in that bed and you think about the plastic chair at County, the cracked backrest, the dried something on the armrest. Ticket number 847. You think about it, and then you stop thinking about it because the nurse just brought you tea and she remembered you like it with honey. Tier 7, $50 million. You don't go to the hospital anymore. The hospital comes to you. Dr. Whitfield is still your physician, You've retained him for $140,000 a year, plus benefits, and he has restructured his entire practice around 3 clients, and you are one of them. He has your genome sequenced. He has your blood work drawn at your home every 6 weeks by a phlebotomist who arrives in a black sedan and sets up in your guest suite and is gone before your coffee gets cold. When something goes wrong, and at 50 million, things still go wrong because money doesn't renegotiate biology, Dr. Whitfield doesn't send you to a hospital. He assembles a team. A surgeon from Mount Sinai, an oncologist from MD Anderson, a radiologist from the Cleveland Clinic. They conference on a private call, review your scans on a secure portal, and one of them flies to you for the consultation. You never sit in a waiting room. You never wear a paper gown. You never hear your name called from a clipboard. You remember Dr. Okafor, the young ER resident from County General years ago, the one with kind eyes and dark circles who listened to your chest for 90 seconds and gave you 4 minutes of his attention because that was all the system allowed him to give. You find him. He's still at County, still overworked, still kind. You offer him a position, medical director of a foundation you're building. He says no the first time. He says yes the second. Not for the money, because you told him what the foundation would do. You build a medical facility, not for you, for the neighborhood around County General. You stock it with equipment that County could never afford. You hire 3 full-time physicians and 2 nurse practitioners and a billing coordinator whose only job is to make sure no one leaves with a number that makes their hands shake. You name it after no one. The hospital is inside your compound now. A fully equipped urgent care suite with imaging, a pharmacy, and a staff of 4, 2 nurses, a physician assistant, and a rotating attending who is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When you travel, a medical team travels with you, discreetly. They stay in an adjacent suite. They carry a go bag with your medications, your records, your blood type, and a portable AED. You don't think about this. You don't have to. Someone else thinks about it for you, the way someone else thinks about your schedule, your security, your pilot's rest hours. But the thing about $10 billion is that it doesn't make you immortal. It just makes you the most monitored, most tested, most consulted upon mortal on Earth. The finest doctors alive will answer your call, and they will run every test, and they will catch every shadow on every scan, and they will extend your life by years that most people will never get. And still, eventually, your body will do what every body does. What 10 billion does buy you is this: time. Not just years, minutes. The minutes you spend not waiting. The minutes you spend not arguing with an insurance company. The minutes you spend not choosing between a prescription and a grocery bill. The minutes you spend not staring at an envelope you're afraid to open. Over a lifetime, those minutes become years, and those years become a completely different life. You visit the facility you built near County General, the one you named after no one. Dr. Okafor runs it now. The waiting room has warm lighting, cushioned chairs, a water dispenser with cucumber slices. The receptionist looks up when a patient walks in. Actually looks up, makes eye contact, says hello. A young woman sits in the corner, holding a paper ticket. She looks tired. Her chest is doing something it's never done before. She doesn't have insurance. She doesn't have a car. Someone drove her here. You watch from the hallway as a nurse calls her name, her actual name, not a number, and walks her back. You think about ticket number 847. The fluorescent tube above the old waiting room used to flicker every 9 seconds. You counted. This one doesn't flicker at all.